I live a fairly healthy life. I go to the gym every day, but sometimes when we have to go and broadcast or when you want to go and sleep, you have to pop an antihistamine. To me, it's a no-no, but if you want peace, if you just want to breathe properly, you have to do it.
Yeah, so the first month when I was here, I was like in and out by the doctor. I went to the doctor. I think they thought I'm a hypochondriac, but for the first month I was sick constantly, like I could feel my chest, like a pain over my chest, my sinuses, all that stuff. And it's just dirt. Even when you go to the bathroom to just blow your nose, it's just all this like black dust and stuff that's constantly on a daily basis that a person is exposed to.
Coal mines, petroleum manufacturing and steel factories have been singled out as some of the worst polluters in the country. Emlahleni, previously known as Witbank in Mpumalanga, has been declared a high priority area as far as air pollution is concerned. Dompi Maposa is an attorney at the Centre for Environmental Rights.
So the case came out of what is declared as the high-felt priority area. This is an air pollution hotspot in the Mpumalanga region and also some parts of the eastern parts of Gauteng province. And this area has a lot of power stations. I believe it's around 11, as well as some Sasol refineries and other industries there. So there was community activists in that region that had been fighting for better air quality management for years and years and years before we even took the matter to court.
Environmental Rights, together with the Highveld Environmental Justice Group, decided to investigate the matter and released a report aptly titled Broken Promises. Maposa explains that this comprehensive report highlights all the human rights injustices with regards to clean air and the constitutional rights of citizens.
So then that research led to what we have called the Broken Promises Report, which found that basically polluters such as Eskom and Sasol, they weren't taking the air quality management plan seriously, and there was simply not enough implementation of the plan. So it's quite a complex issue because some of it comes from the lack of capacity in the municipalities there. They simply don't have the resources to implement the plan. So it's a very complex issue which is captured very beautifully in the Broken Promises report.
But no matter how loud the community spoke up against pollution and the polluters, it became clear the government was not going to come to their rescue. Maposa elaborates.
More recently, though, we are seeing a shift towards leniency towards polluters rather by the government, and that has come up in other areas of our work with regards to the compliance with minimum emission standards, which is air pollution standards. There's been a long-standing pattern of non-compliance and polluters seeking leniencies and being granted these leniencies. So yeah, to answer your question, I could say that there has generally been that pattern.
Maposa says ultimately the CER and Highveld Environmental Justice Group found justice in court.
In short, I would say yes, because the two types of relief we were seeking was regulations. So for the court to tell the minister to make the regulations. And then the other part was a declaration in terms of the Constitution saying that the air pollution in the Highveld infringes upon people's constitutional rights. So it looked at their access to healthcare services, for example.
The crusade became known as the Deadly Air Court Case.
So at the time, there was 12 Eskom power stations. Right now, I believe it's 11. And then also there's a Sasol facility and a NatRef refinery. And he basically found that the air pollution in the area, like the main cause of the extremely poor air pollution is the activities of these 14 industries. So Eskom, Sasol, and the NatRef refinery. And he found that the pollution from these facilities caused between 305 to 650 early deaths in the area, and this was in 2016. And that also the emissions together of all these facilities created acute exposures that exceeded even the World Health Organization's guidelines for what is allowed in terms of air pollution for daily or hourly averages.
Questions are, however, raised about how the data used in the environmental health studies were obtained, as the country does not have a proper system to keep track of excess deaths as other countries do. Recently, government and industry role players convened a conference to at least establish a warning system for extreme weather. Mention was made of the government's Map of Air Quality Index, or SACI, that is already warning people about pollution levels in different areas. But if you don't have data or some level of education, this app will not be accessible or even understandable. The app doesn't always open up correctly, but when it does work, at least we know that the air pollution in Gauteng is so bad that the app recommends we wear masks. According to Dr. Roelof Burger, an air pollution specialist at the Northwest University, air pollution poses a major risk to the country's economy.
It's a really big problem. And there is some studies that suggest this is the largest environmental health risk. We estimate it to be around 4 to 5% of GDP. The cost to the economy that is caused by people getting ill or dying prematurely because of air pollution.
According to Burger, who was until recently the president of the Clean Air Committee, solely blaming companies like Eskom and Sasol for our air pollution problems are not correct.
The short answer is yes, it is everybody's fault. So Eskom and Sasol and all the big industry has a significant contribution to air pollution. Most of their sites have chimneys in the order of 300 meters that put their pollution at very high levels in the atmosphere. And then it disperses over very large areas and it impacts on a lot of people, but the impact is very small. If you go into communities and you look at, you measure sometimes very bad levels of air pollution, and then you do studies that we've done to try and see if you can determine what is the source of those pollution, you will find that there is a myriad of sources contributing, and that industry is only a small fraction of those.
Surprisingly, it's ordinary people like you and me that causes the biggest problem, as Burger elaborates.
So all the activities that we as humans are busy with are emitting pollution in some way. The ones that has the biggest impact on our health is small particles, dust, smoke from burning stuff. And if you look in the most polluted parts in South Africa, and these would be the dense low-income areas, you will find that there's just hundreds of these different kind of sources. Somebody is burning his grass. A lot of people are burning their waste because waste services are not functioning properly. There's unpaved roads that vehicles are driving on. There's old vehicles that don't have control technologies on, that's emitting a lot of particles. All these sources are playing together, and where you have many of these sources close together and people living in that areas is where you find your biggest problem.
Burger says it's understandable that eMalahleni became the country's air pollution hotspot, but studies found that the highest amount of pollution occurs anywhere in South Africa where there's a poor community. In South Africa, this means our townships.
We've done a lot of studies around South Africa, and we will always tell you that the worst air pollution you find in the dense low-income areas. And we've seen that one study in a place called Kwadela was 50 kilometers away from all the big industries on the Highveld, and the pollutants levels were just as bad as in the big cities. You can also find it, for example, in Maikeng here in the Northwest. We've looked at pollution levels there. We've looked at Beaufort West in the Northern Cape. Wherever you find these places where there's a lot of people cramped together, you don't have proper services, you will very likely find very high levels of pollution.
Policymakers and implementers are, however, between a rock and a hard place, balancing the electricity needs of our ever-growing population and overhauling our electricity infrastructure. Burger explains.
Yes, this speaks to the connection between these two problems. On the one hand, we have climate change, and the biggest culprit in climate change is energy. South Africa being very reliant on coal, we have very cheap coal resources, so 70 to 80% of our energy comes from coal. And this is a problem not only for us, but for the whole world, that when we burn coal, we contribute to carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that is the primary cause of climate change. On the other side, having energy available to people means that they don't have to burn wood or coal in their homes, and that is where our biggest air pollution problem lies.
Communities aren't assisted with proper living facilities and service delivery, they will continue to burn fossil fuel and anything else they can find to survive. Those driving from Pretoria to Johannesburg regularly descend into a brown haze near the Alexandra township right across from Sandton, caused by extremely poor communities trying to survive under dire circumstances. Unbeknown to them, they are slowly suffocating themselves and everyone else around them. Burger says the rest of the world does not take into consideration this unique challenge.
I think this is a really sticky situation that we find ourselves in. And even in the science world, I would think that most of the first world, the global north scientists, do not appreciate our situation. And if you think of this evidence-based policies that is trying to inform governments, the message they would receive is that it is definitely a good option to transition towards these cleaner energies.
To Burger, there is, however, a way to offset the problem.
The field that you're talking about is called air quality offsets, and it's something that government and NGOs are not very excited about. We were forced into the situation. The emission limits were gradually lowered by government, and then the big industries found themselves out of compliance, and they were in this stalemate between them and government. And eventually, they found this middle ground where they said they would try and offset their own emissions by looking for solutions in problem areas around them. And so for the last 10 years or so, large industries have been funding research into these areas and then also funding very large projects that try and improve the situation.
Burger says what can, however, not happen anymore is that companies like mining houses or energy-creating companies are left to their own devices. The Department of Environmental Affairs refused an interview about this issue, stating that they are waiting for the outcome of the deadly air court case. Suzanne Paxton for SABC News in Johannesburg.